Hello everybody and welcome back to another Shakuhachi lesson video. My name is Sean Head, your licensed Shakuhachi instructor. Let's get right into it. So we're going to talk a little bit about memorization. So this is also coming from somebody who's not very good at memorization in terms of pieces. A lot of times I like to have the music in front of me when I play, even if I do have the piece memorized or not. And I do have a large body of music memorized. However, I find it always more securing and more helpful to have it there in front of me, because then I'm not worrying about recalling the piece as much as I am being able to focus on what I want to do inside of the piece. I would also say that memorization is kind of on a scale. There's not necessarily you have something memorized or you don't have something memorized at all. A lot of times I can, recall entire pieces, but I can't play them as well if I don't have the music in front of me, because a lot of times I'm thinking about how I want to express the phrase, and I don't want to be worrying about what comes next. I want to be worried about what I'm doing right in the moment. But if you really have your heart set on memorizing, there's a couple things that you can do. One thing is that when I memorize things, what I actually do is I almost have like a mental image of the piece in my head. So I can close my eyes and I can visualize the score and I can see all of the symbols pop up. Now, that's for people who are very visual. That really helps because the way that they memorize the score is just by seeing it many, many times, and then they can depart from it and be able to play the piece. Now, some of the obvious things are like, well, if you just play the piece forward and just play it for again and again and again, at some point you will have it memorized. And I do think that that's helpful, but one of the problems that can happen is that you end up only being able to play the piece from the beginning. So one thing that I would recommend is, as you're working on memorizing the piece, have yourself start the piece and say, okay, I'm going to play lines 1 through 4. Right now, that's the chunk of music that I'm going to be working on memorizing. And so you play those lines 1 through 4. Then what you do is you play the lines 2 through 5, and you offset. So you're always starting on line 2 and then ending on line 5, and then so on and so forth until the piece is over. What this does is it helps you create more of a map of the piece from different starting points. So that way you have, for example, like let's say if I wanted to start for my piece, let's take Honshirabe. That's a really great bass piece to always use as our example. If I want to say I'm going to start on line 4, I know that line 4 is like this, and then it continues on with the Rotsu. Right? And then I could say, all right, well, now I want to go to line 8, and I want to play line 8 and 9, and whatever it may be. You want to be able to have a map or a guide somehow. In Western classical music, we kind of remember these things by rehearsal numbers. So we have rehearsal number 1, rehearsal number 2, rehearsal A, rehearsal B, or maybe there are landmark measures that are notoriously difficult, or where the theme of the music starts. So we can say I start at measure 39 because that's where I have the theme. So I know I can have the piece memorized from measure 39 very easily. The same thing can happen in Shakuhachi. We can say, oh, the height of the piece happens at this line and at this point, and this is what the notes are. So you have these other places which are little guideposts for you along the way. Another thing that you can do, which I haven't really done myself, but I do find it to be very helpful for my students when they do it, which is that to rewrite the score. And so in Buddhism and even in old Christianity, people would scribe and they would rewrite out verses or like sutras. So in Buddhism, it's called Shakyo, and you write out the sutra, character by character, and you can do this many, many times in a row. Same thing with Bible verse memorization, writing out Bible verses or writing out long sections of the Bible as a sort of a practice to not only just memorize the music, but memorize the music or memorize the words, but also to have it more as a part of you as you're, engaging with it with using another sense rather than just sight or hearing or speaking it, right? If I hear the music, if I play the music, if I say the music out loud, I can also write the music. So the more senses that you involve with it, the better off you're going to be with memorizing the music. So let's take that same idea with memorizing like scripture, whether it be Buddhist scripture or Christian scripture. Think of the first line of Honshirabe. We can say Sure de ooh, and so on and so forth. Then I can write that out. Then I can hear it from someone else playing it. Then I can play it myself. And hey, light some incense, make yourself a mango shake. Smell the mango shake every single time you play honshirabe, and you'll have the most mango honshirabe I've ever heard. So I hope that these little tips and tricks for memorization are helpful. Try not to let it be something that bogs you down and makes it impossible for you to move on. We don't live in a memorization culture anymore, with everything at the touch of our fingertips and all the facts that we could ever want being so easily accessible through Google and through our phones or through ChatGPT or whatever. We're starting to lose that skill set of being able to memorize things quickly. One of my friends, as a quick little note here, as a part of this kind of lesson, more of a conversation between us and through the echoes of time. When he was a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, and you went to go see a movie at the movie theater, you had one chance to memorize something so that you can go to your friends the next day and talk about it. Now, today we can rewatch a movie 1,000 times. We can skip back and forth so easily to memorize different lines that we like, or we can just look up the line, say, hey, what did he say again in that one movie? You put 3 words into it, it's like, what quote's this from? And, a bunch of options pop up. So not that we shouldn't just say memorization is no longer important. I think it's a very important skill set to have, but do realize that it's going to be harder because it's something that we're not engaged with as much anymore. It's not a practice that we are used to doing now on the daily basis because everything is so easily accessible. So with that being said, enjoy the time memorizing, and I'll see you guys next time for another shakuhachi lesson.